I bought a property as a first-time investor which turned out to have a structural defect, something I only found out once I signed the contract and committed to purchasing the property. And now I've come to learn that's the joy of buying something all the way in Perth while I'm sitting here thousands of kilometers away in Sydney. So as part of the property buying process, you'll see that your contract of sale has a building and pest clause. In WA, if your contract is a standard REI WA contract, you'll find that in one of the annexures, it'll have a clause which talks about structural or a pre-purchase inspection. This means that a building inspection has to be done to satisfy the contract. Now for myself, and this particular property, it was built in the 1980s, so I was hoping that everything comes back clean. I had my fingers crossed to see if everything is okay with the report. So the building inspector went in, took lots of photos and sent me back quite a lengthy and detailed report, which I was quite glad to see. To be honest with you guys, this was the first building report that I've actually seen in my life. So I was going through everything line by line and everything seemed okay. There were some minor defects and things like that which weren't too big of an issue until I got to point 15, and that's when my heart sank a little. A steel patio with solid roof cover located at the left of the home, and as an addition to the original home, corrosion has affected the base of the steel post shoes to the extent that the structural integrity of the post is compromised. This is a major defect and a structural defect, and the affected post should be remedied and be structurally sound prior to the pre-settlement inspection. Also see the attached video. At this point, I'm already shocked and scared, so I check the video and see what the hell is wrong with this property. Yeah, that's not really good. I mean, the post itself is like literally shaking around. It's offering zero support to the actual structure itself. It may as well not be there because it's not really offering any sort of structural support to the roof. And really this post being like that is making the entire structure more dangerous. For context, this is how it looks like with the three posts. So even one of these posts not offering any sort of support really compromises the structure, and it means that the other posts need to do the heavy lifting to make sure that the entire roof does not collapse on itself. Now some of you guys might think, come on mate, this is not that big of a deal, you're overreacting, it's just a little roof support, it can easily be fixed, like what are you on about, it's not that big of an issue. But what you've got to understand, this whole thing is a safety hazard. The tenants in particular have little ones in the house, and if anything was to happen to the roof itself, if it was to collapse or anything like that, this situation can change in literally milliseconds, and this could be catastrophic not just to the little ones but to, they have a dog as well, like this could be really horrible to the tenants themselves. Not sure how much the roof itself weighs, but I would estimate it weighs around 100 to 200 kilos, making the actual impact even more horrible. Don't want to think about it. Not to mention that if this thing was to collapse, what would be the estimate costs for me to actually repair this and restore it back to the original condition? It would be more of a headache to repair this as well, so this definitely had to be fixed. To be honest, I don't know why the previous owners or even the tenants didn't do anything about this. It looks like they just let it go on, and it looks like negligence on both the property manager's side as well as the tenant's side, because property managers are the ones that are supposed to be going out to the property, inspecting it, making sure everything is in working order. It looks like the tenants really turned a blind eye to this as well. So after seeing this, I go back to my solicitor the same day, sent him the video and asked him what are the next steps. My solicitor then comes back to me and sends me a notice that they've drafted up on my behalf, basically asking me to review it and sign it, which basically reads that we're giving you, the sellers, notice that the inspection came back with a structural defect, and as per the contract, you have 5 days to tell us if you will fix the issue or not. And if you don't fix it, we as the buyer can terminate the contract without any fee. Now the reason we were able to do this is because in point 4 of the contract, it states that if the report identifies any major structural defects to the property's building, the buyer at any time within 3 days after the date serve a major structural defects notice to the seller, and the seller then has 5 days to reply or remediate the issue. So thankfully, because of that clause in the contract, I was basically covered. The seller only really has two options: either they fix the issue and sell the place to me, or they don't fix the issue and then I can terminate the contract without any penalties legally. And the best part of all in this whole situation is that as an investor, costs are very important to me, and this cost would be covered under the contract. So after serving that notice, the sellers did indeed agree to fix it, and I was so glad that this was going to get sorted. I haven't physically flown over there and inspected the property. Now with an issue like this, especially because the property is interstate, I haven't really flown over there and inspected the property with my 2 eyes myself, so I can't really verify that the work has been completed, and I'm sitting here all the way in Sydney. I need some sort of evidence. I can't just take their word for it that the situation and the roof issue has been fixed. Now at this point, settlement was fast approaching, and I hadn't really heard anything back from my solicitor, and I kept following up. They hadn't heard back anything either, with the sellers informing that this had been fixed. So this was a red flag for me, because settlement is coming up. I was hoping, are they looking to not do this and just do it after settlement? I was very hesitant with that approach because I wanted to be fixed before the property gets transferred over to me, and I was not in a position to agree to settle the property at all until this was fixed. On the actual settlement day of the property, we were informed by the sellers that they're gonna need a few more days to actually fix this issue, which I thought was very interesting because these guys left it to the last minute to actually rectify this issue. I think they were hoping that we would just forget about it. I'm not sure what happened. Personally, I was just glad that this issue was being fixed. The contract itself allows for, I think, around 2 to 3 days where either side, the buyer or the seller, can delay the contract for any reason, for any other items that need to be fixed. So I was okay with that. I was okay with letting it be delayed for a couple of days so this whole thing can be fixed. From my understanding, if it went above the 3 days, if the seller was at fault, I can legally request penalties from them, and vice versa. If there was any issues and delays on my end after the 3 days, then the sellers can also request some sort of penalties or some sort of compensation interest from me as well. So they were supposedly fixing it, and a pre-settlement inspection was done by my real estate agent, who I went with and signed up very recently. At that point, you can check out my previous video on how I actually arrived and picked this agent. This is very informative. And the agent took this photo right here, which thankfully confirms that they are onto it. We can see that the work is being done at the time of his inspection, but even then I still wasn't 100% sure that this work had been completed, because just because somebody's out there doing the work, it doesn't actually verify that the work was indeed completed. Until a day or two later, my solicitor comes back to me with these two photos confirming that the work indeed was done, and I was so relieved. And then we proceeded with settlement after a 3-day delay without any penalties being asked from either side. So that's how it all went with the building side of things. I'm so glad that this issue was sorted without any sort of issue or any costs from my end, and I'm grateful that the property settled, even if it was after a 3-day delay. So normally a building and pest inspection is a major condition of the contract that needs to be satisfied, but another major condition of the contract is for the buyer to actually obtain finance and get full approval with their lender of choice. Now this is where I had some issues and mainly some delays with my bank, and I'll dive into all of these in my next video, so stay tuned, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye now.